Hey guys, what's going on? It's Don here from Novaspirit Tech and welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to be installing Jellyfin on our Proxmox series with hardware transcoding. So let's get started. Alright, so just a recap, if you've been following this series along, the first thing we did was install Proxmox, set up a NAS server. I showed you a website with Proxmox helper script, and today we are going to be installing Jellyfin. Now, Jellyfin in itself is pretty easy to install, but there's a lot of back-end stuff that needs to be done just to get it working, like hardware transcoding. And because it doesn't have native support for network shares, we have to mount our network shares as well. So we have to do that outside of the scene. So there is some footwork we have to do just to get Jellyfin working properly. Now, we are going to be using the help of the helper script so we can install Jellyfin properly. So if you missed the last video on the helper script, go check that out as well. So let's begin. Now, a couple of things that's going to happen in this video is there's going to be two methods to mount your shares so you could actually see your media. I'm going to show you both ways, but ultimately I'm going to be using the second way where we are going to be able to talk to each other through a container instead of using network share, but I'm going to show you both ways. Second, we're going to be passing through our GPU from the zimablade over to this container so we could actually get hardware transcoding with Jellyfin. Now, this method is actually the same method I will be using for Plex when I install Plex for hardware transcoding as well. So if you want to jump along or jump ahead to install Plex instead of Jellyfin, just mind the process of installing GPU. This way you could just get that going. So here we have our PVE test. And on our last video, we just quickly installed Sonar. In my case, I don't really need it, so I'm just going to stop this service just so I don't have to waste more resources than we have. And keep in mind, we are using a zimablade, and this thing is not as powerful as you would think. So I am on a J3455, which is a CPU from 2016 and only 8 gigs of RAM. Now, the zimablade is great because you could actually purchase this thing for $65, but it's not a powerhouse. If you get any mini PCs like an N95, N100, heck, even a 5105, it's more powerful than what we have right over here. But we are still making do with what we got. And it's actually been a lot of fun because it's so resource dependent. You got to figure out how you want to build stuff just to get everything working. All right, so to begin, what we're going to do is actually install Jellyfin. That would be the first step before anything has to happen. So I'm going to go over to media over here. And again, I'll leave a link for this video on where to get all these helper scripts. I'm going to head over to Jellyfin Media Server. I'm going to copy this, which is this code over here. Just hit this copy button. Head over to PVE test. Then I am going to go over to shell and then paste this down here. Now, what's good about this script is it already sets it up so it's privilege mode. You could actually have root access, so you don't have to really set any configurations that you don't need. You can change stuff if you wanted to go into the advanced setting over here, but ultimately you could just let the defaults go. You see how there's an advanced? I'm just gonna hit yes, let the defaults go because it is gonna be privileged already, so I don't have to worry about anything. All right, I am gonna install this on the NVMe, and same thing, I'm gonna install this on NVMe. Now, depending on how fast your internet connection is and how fast your CPU is, this only takes a couple of minutes. All right, so we have our IP and our port number. So let's make sure that that works. Let me see if I can copy this. Oh, actually, I could just open new link in new tab. And there we have it. Jellyfin is up and running. Now, we're not going to go through a setup yet. We're just going to leave this for now. But we are going to do some stuff to it. First, I am going to have to power it down. So I'm just going to shut down. Not shut down. I'm gonna have to go to Jellyfin and then shut down the Jellyfin. Just because I don't need it as of yet, because I need to enable some options. Now I'm gonna head over to options over here, and in features, I am gonna add something. Up on the top left, you can see edit, and I am gonna add SIFs, SMB and SIFs, okay? And then now we get started back up. This way it'll actually allow you to FS-tab mount network shares. Now, this next part only applies when you have your NAS outside of the scope of your Proxmox. So if you have a different NAS from a different location and you need to pull resources from there, this is what you need to do. So now we're going to head into console. It's going to automatically log into root of Jellyfin. And to make sure I am going to install SIF tool, so I'm going to do app install SIF tool, SIF utils, SIFs utils. I don't think this is necessarily needed, but I'm just used to installing this. And then next we are going to add our mount. So just to make sure, I am going to mount it into /mnt. Okay, there is a directory. So I'm going to nano into etc fs tab. And in the next line, I'm going to add my network share. So in our case, since we already have one called debNAS, and I know the IP, which is 104, I'm going to add that just to show you. So I'm going to do 192.168.105.104/ and we know it's called public. Hit tab for the next line, and you have to mount. I'm going to put it to mount. You can make a different folder if you want to do /media or /mount/media. It's really up to you how you want to mount this. Then I'm going to declare it as sifs. And then from here, this is, if you have a username, you would do username done or whatever, and then password would be the password itself. Now, because I have guest enabled, I just need to do guest. And from here, we have to do IO character set. And it's UTF-8, no perm, and then 00. We should be able to save this with Control X, save that. And now we should be able to do mount-A. And if there's no errors, that automatically mounted our public folder. So I'm going to ls, or list structure, let me clear this, ls/mnt, and you should see some stuff here like ASDF, new folder. So this method only applies if, like I said, you want to use your network share. It's not like we can't use this method over here that we're doing, but the only problem is we're using unnecessary resources because Samba still needs to process and stuff like that. So I'm going to be using a little bit of CPU resources from our NAS just to transfer files to Jellyfin on the same Proxmox. So to me, I'd rather not waste the valuable resources, even if it's only like 3% of the computation power. So in my case, what I'm going to be doing is something called a ZFS pool. For now, what I'm going to do is undo the things that I just did. So I'm going to nano fs tab, etc fs tab, delete that line because I don't want to mount that. Save that, umount/mnt, and I'm just going to unmount that. Make sure it's unmounted, it's cleared. Perfect. So now what we need to do is create a ZFS pool, use mount points to join the first container and the third container to use the same mount point. So what we need to do is head over to PVE test, head over to shell. This is the main root. And in here we could do ZFS list. And now it's adding up why I did ZFS, because I could do stuff like this. So I have the ZFS list like this, and I do have a 2 terabyte pool or 1.75 terabyte. Here I'm going to do ZFS create, and I'm going to call this Z pool because that's where the resource we're using, and I'm going to call this media. And now if I do ZFS list again, we're going to see this new media pool. Now it does use all of the resources, like there's no cap, there's no quota for it. So what I do want to do is actually lower that quota just in case I don't accidentally use up all the resources or all the storage from there. So what I'm going to do is ZFS get quota, and I'm going to look it up Z pool/media, and it should be none. Yeah, it's on none right now. To set it, all we have to do is ZFS set quota equal, and this is where you want to put how many gigs. So in my case, I'm just going to put 100 gigs. You probably want to do more than that. It's up to you, but you could always change this quota to more as you need it. But I'm going to do 100 gigs /zpool/media. Oh, there's no leading slash. There you go. Gotta get rid of that. And there we go. Now we set a quota for 100 gigs so we don't accidentally load too much files into it. So we could check that out again, ZFS list. And there we go. We have the 100 gigabyte quota. Now, the next step, what we need to do is be able to mount stuff. Now, in our case, like if I go over here and go over to resources, I got a root disk and there's something called mount point. Now, I can't just mount it through here. Like Zpool, it doesn't have the Zpool/media. It's just whatever I got over here. So I can't use that. And this is what I mean by Proxmox still being immature to ZFS because they don't have a lot of GUIs in place to do what we want to do like this. It does have the commands because it's coming off Debian, but we still don't have a lot of the structure built for ZFS, like snapshots and stuff like that. So, but anyway, let's get back into it. What we need to do now is set the mount point. So we're going to do PCT, which is Proxmox Container Toolkit, and we're going to do set. And the first one is 101. So we're going to do 101, and we're going to call this MP1 or mount point 1, or we could do mount point 0, mount point 3, mount point 4, whatever. As long as there's no collision, like you don't have something already set up for mount point, you could use that. Then we're going to do zpool. I hit tab, media, and then comma, and we're going to do mount point equals, and this is where you want it on your location of your device. So I'm going to do mount slash, and I'm going to make a folder called media, and then hit enter. Now we have to do the same thing for 103, which is our Jellyfin container. So 103. So now if I go over to debnaz, there should be a new mount point right here, and it's zpool media. And then it points to that folder mount media. And then same goes for Jellyfin, zpool mount media. So we're now kind of sharing that one folder, which is zpool media. We're not done here yet because we still need to set the permission for that particular folder. So we're just going to do chmod recursive capital R 777 slash zpool media. And there we have it. That permission is all set up so we could start using that folder. First, what I want to do in my debnaz is actually add that folder to my share. So I'll have actually a public folder and then a media folder, and then it won't counteract with each other. So my public folder would just be my normal share stuff that I would share around my network, and media would be solely just for TV shows, movies, whatever it is. In our last video, we made a user for this. So we're going to jump over to Don, pop in over to that username. All right, so what we need to do is check out our Docker. So I'm going to do Docker PS, and you could see that our Samba is running. I'm going to do Docker stop Samba, Docker remove Samba. It's not going to remove the data. It's just removing the Docker. Then we got to go back up to our previous command, which we typed in our last video, and we got to make some modifications to this. First, we need to add a new volume, and the volume is going to be /mount/media, and then :/mount media. And then at the end of this, I'm just going to scroll all the way to the back. We're going to do the same thing, -s. We're going to do media, /mount/media, which is the folder we gave. And then again, yes, no, yes. And then close out the quotes. Now we should be able to run this again, and it's actually going to make a new mount point. So what I'm going to do is head over to my files, head back into, actually I'm already there. So let me refresh this and go into 104, and now there's a new folder called media. To double check that it is containing data, or we could write to it, I'm just going to create a new folder. Oh, so I made a little mistake on that over here. You see that? I forgot to put a space there. So let me clear that up. All right, now that that is up again, we can head back into our Samba. We are in media. I'm gonna hit 5 to refresh. And again, make sure I can make a folder. So this time I'm just gonna call this movies. And there we have it. I'm gonna create another new folder called TV shows, just in case. And if you got anime or whatever, you could just keep adding your folders here. But now this media is actually separate from your public share. So it's 2 different locations. All right, so we are done with that. Now, if you don't plan to use a hardware transcoding, you could just jump to this step. So I'm gonna get this up and going right now. I'm gonna head over to my Jellyfin, and I'm doing IPA just to grab the IP address again. It's 192, 192, and then 8096. All right, so I'm gonna hit English. Username, you could just leave this. If you don't want to set a password, you could leave it blank. I'm just gonna leave this as default, but for you, you should probably put a username and password for this. But I'm gonna hit next. Add media library, and this is where what we just did makes sense. I'm gonna add a folder in here, and you could see now there's a mount media, and you could see movies and TV shows. Those are the 2 folders that we just created. And now this is shared between the zpool on the mount points, which I don't need to use more resources trying to push a Samba protocol over. We are just reading it directly from the resource, which even that couple of percentage of CPU usage is not wasted. So we're able to still reach our media. So in our case, I'm just going to put movies, and then I'm going to hit OK. Content type, I'm going to do movies, and then I'll just make it default for the rest of the way. This way we'll get this up and going. Now I'm going to hit next, next, allow remote access, that's it, and then finish. And then now my user is Jellyfin, and we should have our little prompt over here. Now I'm going to drop a movie in there just to test out what we're going to be doing. So all right, so now I have a movie in place, which it might be a lot blurry because I'm not going to show what movie I have and all that stuff. You might be able to guess, but that's fine. One of the things you're going to see is it's 1080 and HVEC. which is H.265. Now, a lot of browsers don't support H.265, so we're going to be transcoding it no matter what. I'm going to play this video now, and we know it's being transcoded or the CPU is going to be overworked. I'm going to mute this and then turn this down. But you could see right now, it's skipping. It's pausing, skipping, pausing, skipping. And that's because the CPU cannot handle the transcoding process. So if I head over to my Proxmox, hit summary, you can see the CPU usage is pretty high right now, 50%, which is the 2 cores I gave it for Jellyfin. And if I head over to Jellyfin, you can see the CPU usage is at 96%. And it's using 400 something megs of RAM. It's able to do it, but trying to convert HVAC is gonna be a huge problem for this computer. So we're gonna try to utilize everything we can, which now we're gonna do iGPU pass-through. So for here, what I'm gonna do now is just stop this before I kill my CPU, because that's what it's kind of doing right now. I'm gonna head back over to my Proxmox, let that CPU drop, and we're gonna have to do a couple of things to our Proxmox to get it prepped up so we could actually use the iGPU. So first, we're gonna go to shell. And if you want to, you could actually follow the Jellyfin documentation, because they actually have something on the same thing what we're doing right now, LXC on Proxmox, on how to pass through your GPU. So this process is proven. It actually works. If I scroll all the way to the top, I think I might be able to get, so if you have any type of this GPU, Jasper Lake, Apollo Lake, whatever, it will work. So let me head back over to Proxmox, because I still need to use this for reference. I'm going to head back over to my Proxmox test. And in here, what we need to do is load the graphic drivers. So we're going to do nano/etc mod probe.d/i915.config. We're creating this file, so you have to type it out. In here, what we're going to do is options, i915, which we're loading the drivers. And we're going to put it into enable GUC equals 3. There's more detail about enabling bitcodes and stuff like that, but I'm just going to leave it like that. Since the new Proxmox, I think 7.0 and up, you could just use this command and it works fine. If you got older version like 6.0, you might have to enable a bytecode. I forgot the word. It's off the top of my head. I just can't remember right now. But anyway, I'm going to reboot this. All right, and we are back. Now, the next step we need to do is actually modify the 103 config file. So we're going to do nano/etc/pve/LXC, and it's 103, which is Jellyfin, and we're going to go into that config file. And on the bottom, you see how they have LXC.mount and all that stuff. We're going to head over to Jellyfin and just copy and paste this little section right there. Copy that, and we are going to paste it right there. And apparently, I actually didn't need to do that, which I didn't know, because this helper script, I think, actually added in already what we needed. Obviously, there's one more right over here, which sometimes uses this code instead of a 226. So I am going to not save this, because it seems like it's already in there. So why even bother trying to add it in again? And now we should be able to pass through our graphic card. Now, what I like to do just to make sure that I have permission to write into it is chmod-r77/dev/dri/star. So everything underneath there would be writable. And then now we could jump back into our Jellyfin and start passing through the graphic card, which is the fun part. Head over into console, into Jellyfin. And what we're going to do is ls/dev/dri. Just to make sure. There you go. I actually have the card 0 and render 128, which is what we needed. What I'm going to do is app install the drivers, which is VA info. That will actually install everything that I need. And also Intel GPU tools. Okay, now if I do VA info, I should be getting stuff back. There you go. It actually reads the graphic card. So we know it actually supports MPEG-2, H.264, HVAC, this one, VP9, and we got all the ideas that we need. To test if we are actually able to read the GPU, we're going to do Intel GPU top. Yep, it reads it perfectly fine. We're actually able to get the utilities. So next, what I'm going to do is just to make sure, because I can't be certain if the script did this already, but I'm going to do user mod-a capital G video Jellyfin. I'm going to add the video group to Jellyfin. I'm going to also add the input group. So I'm going to input, and also add the render group. Just in case, because the Jellyfin also needs those permission. And then we're going to do systemctl restart Jellyfin, just so it could re-register the new user groups that we just added. And that should be it. We should be able to get hardware acceleration. So I'm going to go back into Intel GPU top, and I'm going to let this run for now. Head back over into my Jellyfin, head into settings, dashboard, playback, and then hardware acceleration. Now we could use Intel QuickSync, and I'm going to enable HVAC because we know that, MPEG-2 we know that, VP8 and VP9 we know that, and we do need to enable low powered mode, so these two has to be enabled as well. And I'm going to hit save. Okay, I got it. Hardware acceleration is enabled. Head back into home, and I am going to try to play this video. If it plays, hardware acceleration is working. All right, there we go. It's actually smooth as butter right now. And if I head over to my Proxmox, you could see it's actually using my GPU. 90% right now, video enhanced 25, about 8 watts. It's 700 megahertz. And if I head over to my summary, it's using the CPU just because it still has to encode the audio, but not the video. And I know that this eventually drops down pretty low, but for the initial play, it does have a little bit of the CPU usage, but at least it's not pinned. I'm able to actually play the video smoothly, and it's converting H.265 to H.264, which my browser will support. Anyway, that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a little bit more of a detailed video, just getting Jellyfin to work through. We did multiple ways of mounting your shares. We got hardware transcoding working, so we are fully utilizing this very budget-friendly zimablade right now. If you run into problems, check out their documentation, or they have a wiki out. There's going to be someone with the same problem that they probably resolved. But for me, this is on Apollo Lake and it's working. So I'm pretty sure newer GPUs would be a lot easier to get this going. And with the new Proxmox versions, a lot of the microcode's already in there, so you don't have to activate it. That was the word I was trying to look for earlier, the microcode. It seems that the Proxmox helper script already has everything in place to get the GPU passed through. So I don't see any problems. It's actually working out pretty well. Anyway, if you guys are new to the channel, consider subscribing and also hitting that bell notification icon so you know when the next video is going to be out. And as I say in my nerd cave, hack till it hurts.